Good evening. This is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro. And we are going to talk about the People's Choice Award. It's super important. Even though we couldn't be together in person, it is an urgent and important matter. We had to talk about it right now. I was very unsure what would be the winner. There were a lot of movies that I think were contending. Saturday Night, Wild Robot, Honora, Amelia Perez, even The Substance had a couple screenings added, and Life of Chuck seemed like maybe a sleeper hit for the People's
Yeah.
Choice.
I was like kind of worried, oh no, that might happen. And I put it at number three. I had my prediction Saturday Night Honora because I was very confident that Honora would place and that Life of Chuck would be number three. Saturday Night it was hard to get a feel for because people in my circles weren't really talking about it, but I just heard that the screening was good and it struck me as a crowd pleaser, and I knew they were trying really hard. So I just figured, heck, maybe that's just it. And it would kind of be like it would kind of make me cozy because I was already predicting Saturday Night to be a Best Picture movie. That would make me cozy, knowing that it was pretty solidly in there. And Life of Chuck, I was not predicting for any awards after I saw it. I'm the only one who's seen it. Oscar expert has
I
not seen
fucking
Life of Chuck.
can't believe that I didn't miss this movie.
Yeah,
I did kind of try to see it, but it was just not going to work with other things.
yeah,
My
like it just
God,
wasn't on
what
the
a
radar.
failure. What an absolute failure. Must apologize to the viewers that I didn't even get to see Life of Chuck. All right. I have to wait till it comes out. So, yeah, Life of Chuck won the damn People's Choice Award. Boy.
It
So,
makes sense. Listen, the fact is, it makes sense with the kind of movie that it is, and it was absolutely being buzzed up a lot. Like it's kind of thing where I'm like, fuck, I should have seen that coming, and I did. I was like watching out for it, but I didn't want to think about what am I gonna have to do if this thing wins, like with my Oscar predictions, and maybe that's the reason that I didn't actually put it in. But the film's got the stuff. I really think you look at Letterboxd, it has what it's gonna pan out to be like a 4.0.
it might get like a 3.8 still.
There's a dance sequence that there was mid-theater applause afterwards. And it was one of the best, most joyful dance sequences I have seen in any film. It happens around the middle. I was really high on that scene. I think the audience was really high and like soaring on it. It's just very entertaining. It's inspiring. It's charming. It's like the kind of existential film that deals with these greater questions of like death and meaning in life. It kind of spells it out for you, like it says it. There's some narration where it like explains it maybe a little too bluntly for my taste, kind of leaving like a little bit of the mystery out for me. I think that's why some critics are like less high on it because they feel like it's okay, well, you kind of told me what it was doing, like you showed your hand a
Yeah.
little bit
It has
there.
like a 69 on Metacritic right now.
66.
Not unprecedented. 66. Yeah, I mean, not unprecedented though. I mean, Jojo Rabbit
Yeah.
and Green Book are among People's Choice winners that were not
Yep.
super critically
But
acclaimed. I
listen,
mean,
the
look,
movie's
yeah,
good. Let me just say the movie is very good. Like I went in with low expectations and it exceeded them. It went over really well with the audience, and also it's clever. It's creative. It does this backwards storytelling sort of idea where each act is told in like reverse order of Chuck's life. And you really start out like not knowing where the hell the movie's going, and you don't really know where it's going all the way up until the end. But it's a fun time and it's very accessible, but it's also something that is trying to make you think it's serious enough. People might just find this to be like the life affirming movie of the year. All the power to it. I don't mind like a populist choice in here. And it's also like a Stephen King adaptation. Mike Flanagan is, pretty established. I'm
that's the
not
thing.
resistant to the idea that this could get a Best Picture nomination. Like, I actually think, why the hell wouldn't I have it in my top 10? And I challenge people who are like, oh, I'm not going to put this in. Like, what do you have in your top 10 that you're so convinced by that you couldn't take it out for the People's Choice winner? Like, I don't
No,
think
I
we
think
have 10 locks this year.
I haven't seen anybody be immediately resistant, but I think it's interesting because I immediately understand just from everything you've said and what's been said about the movie that this
Yeah.
is obviously just going to make it in, even if it just is screenplay picture. Like, I think it will get more. I think it will end up getting more, but the screenplay is it's obvious to me that this could win adapted screenplay. Like, are we seeing this? Are we seeing this? Because
Hey, look,
if
if it
like
gets
Sing,
nominated,
the if is just as long as a studio buys it. I'm sure right now there's a fierce bidding war, and it would
yeah.
be insane for a studio to not release it this year when it just won the People's Choice. People were saying with The Brutalist, oh, it doesn't make sense for any studio to buy it. Every studio's got their hands full. And here you have another film that just is going to probably find its way one way or another.
And I think a major studio would take it. I don't think it would even have to be like a Searchlight. I mean, maybe it would be, but
it could be like
I could imagine.
Everybody thought it could be Netflix.
I could imagine like that, or Amazon MGM, or or a bigger studio taking it. And
the adapted screenplay contenders to win are Sing Sing, which if it doesn't win Best Picture, doesn't actually make sense as a screenplay winner without Best Picture.
And
Conclave is like, okay, maybe. This just makes a lot of sense. And Mike Flanagan, for him to accept the award, this is kind of his Oscar moment now. Like that's immediately how we have to look at this. And also Stephen King, like I don't know if a movie of his has ever won a screenplay award. It doesn't go to him, but there's something there, I guess, right?
Look, the movie would, if it's nominated, it's gonna win adapted screenplay in my predictions right now. I'm gonna predict that to actually happen. And it's because it's told in this reverse structure. It's got humor, it's got levity.
Yeah.
I think it's got the stuff to take that. And Sing Sing, I don't have a reason, unless I thought that was winning Best Picture, to say it's winning adapted screenplay. So, is it too much American fiction all over again? Perhaps. But that's
it happened with Jojo Rabbit too, though. What's interesting is that most people didn't come out of this movie with Oscar buzz. But I'm sure that they said, hey, look, if it goes and wins the People's Choice, then I can see a path for it.
It is kind of like done with this mainstream appeal. That's probably why people were like, oh, I don't know if that's like Oscar.
I want to know what other nominations we can expect here.
Listen,
perhaps.
I wish I was watching it a little more carefully, because when I saw it win, I was like, fuck, what would it get nominated for that's acting potential? And I had a hard time thinking of it, but I was reminded by some people on Twitter, shout out to Adriano, that Mark Hamill is probably the film's prospect for supporting actor.
You think so?
Now, at first I was like, okay, well, Tom Hiddleston, he was in it. And then I was trying to like think back, because no one like completely stood out to me. Like the ensemble's very good. SAG Ensemble very much has that potential. Like there's a lot of supporting performances and everyone's very good in it. Definitely got a nomination there if it's like a Best Picture thing, which I do think it is. I agree that Mark Hamill had like a couple monologues and his character has some depth. He plays grandpa of the youngest version of Chuck. I don't think it's like a huge performance. Like that's why it's not totally obvious to me. And I'm not sure that would happen. Like I wonder if this movie could get in without acting prospects.
But what about Tom Hiddleston?
Tom Hiddleston,
doesn't he do the dancing?
He kind of dances and then he fucks off the rest of the movie. It didn't strike me as enough for an Oscar nomination, and I get why people are like, okay, Mark Hamill would be the push.
Is he in multiple of the timelines? Is he in like the whole movie?
No, but he's in the longest timeline, which also happens it's like the third act, and I think some of like the middle as well.
Okay. And then there's nobody else.
I mean, look, Hiddleston, maybe I'm forgetting that he had a couple scenes. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's anybody else. Like, there's no supporting actress. I don't think so.
Do we have technical... It's told in reverse. Are we talking about editing potential as well?
It could get editing, and it's not just because it's in reverse, and it's not just because it's told in this, kind of asynchronous order. It also has that dance sequence I was talking about, and that scene is absolutely invigorating. Like, it's worth the price of admission alone. It's just so joyful. And the editing is a huge showstopper there. This could get recognized for editing if people are really feeling the movie. Now, this one I do have a harder time squeezing into predictions. Like, I'd have less of a hard time putting in someone for supporting actor right now than editing, because it's kind of crowded. Like, I'm really thinking Honora might get editing, Amelia Perez, Conclave, Dune, and The Brutalist. So I don't really know what I would take out there, but it could.
Or Saturday Night.
Or Saturday Night, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that shit. I think editing's a prospect. I feel like score is a prospect too, although, again, I wish I was paying a little bit closer attention to score here. I don't know what my feeling is on the score. Certainly, I think the dance sequence is score, although it's like it's just drums. I would have to give score a second look, but I have heard that score shouted out. So there you go. I mean, what I'm thinking is screenplay, Best Picture, and then something else might come along. No matter what it is, I think 3 nominations is like enough.
Either Tom Hiddleston or Mark Hamill has a pretty good narrative for a first nomination.
Mark Hamill,
especially Mark Hamill. Never been nominated, like generational, like cinematic hero for many people.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
even if he's like good enough, I people could just like it a lot.
I'm thinking about Judd Hirsch. Like, he had a couple scenes where he was a real standout. It's not the same, but Mark Hamill, just with a couple of scenes, could be enough. And he plays a grandpa. That's helpful. Like think about like Kieran Hines in Belfast. Like you don't even have to do all that much. So it's kind
That's
of like
fair.
that.
I would probably try to predict him at this point.
I think you
And
should
then
try to predict.
if
Yeah,
I can see if editing his room. And what do you think that this movie will stay a top 5 or a bottom 5 contender in terms of best picture?
Bottom 5.
If it comes out next year, that's insane. You still have to predict it for best picture. I think it's going to get acquired this week in the next like couple days, probably.
Yeah. I don't know what critics groups are going to do with it though. I don't know. I think Critics' Choice will do it. Sure,
I think critics groups could keep it in their 5s for adapted, and maybe it'll probably squeeze into a lot of their 10s.
Yeah,
some of their 10s. That's usually what happens. Like even Jojo Rabbit and movies like that end up kind of making it in when those critics crew have like their 10s. New York, LA, like they probably ignore that kind of thing, but that doesn't.
I mean, I'm tempted to not take it seriously, right? But last year we made this mistake where we saw American Fiction, we thought it was good, not great, and then we left it out after it won TIFF People's Choice and said it's going to get a screenplay nomination, and that was a mistake. So
no, I'm not tempted to not take it seriously. I just think the screenplay potential is really big for it. And it seems like it's getting the right kind of reactions. I don't see why it wouldn't translate with the Academy. And the ensemble thing too. The ensemble thing, like SAG Ensemble.
That's actually really easy. You should be sold on that.
The second runner-up is Emilia Perez. I was a little not sure of how well this was doing during the festival because a lot of the people that I talked to were like either thinking that it was just a mess or that it was an enjoyable mess. So it didn't seem to have rousing reactions outside of a couple people, but the audience it seems like they ate the damn thing up. It was very exciting for people to have Selena Gomez there and stuff.
What a great like affirming sign to anyone who doubts Emilia Perez's Oscar potential, right?
Yeah.
Because yes, like if you're in certain circles, everyone you talk to is going to be like, yeah, the movie's like okay, and I guess it's a Best Picture thing, sure, because Netflix has it, but to see it take this prize, I mean, guys, it placed at Cannes. It was number 3 for Cannes, and now it's number 2 to win the People's Choice. Yeah, and it won actress. So like, it's doing things. Very, very well. It's going to get plenty of nominations at the Oscars.
It's actually insane because
number
2 out of 3 of the People's Choice films were from Cannes, and that's unprecedented, I think.
Yep. So Emilia Perez, like solidly in there. I actually chickened out and took it out of my top 3 predictions, even though I was saying going into the festival that it was definitely going to place. I took it out because I put Life of Chuck in, and I was like, maybe this is the one that misses, but no. So then we have Anora placing. Anora was the most liked film, the most mentioned as people's favorite by far from the kind of people I talk to at the festivals. And I try to talk to people I see on film Twitter who I recognize, but I also talk to like people who just say hi. And there's just no question it was like the favorite movie of most people. Also because most people had not seen The Brutalist, like that just didn't screen enough for people to be talking about it like that. And Anora, like a lot of these films, added a screening at the end. It went from 3 to 4. It had the least screenings of any film that placed. I think both Emilia Perez and Chuck ended up with 9 screenings, so they were like all over the fucking place. And Anora is just so well liked that it overcame this, this slight disadvantage of having less screenings.
Well, let's clarify something, because we actually said something misleading. When we were talking about the People's Choice Award and how the amount of screenings affect it, we were being misleading because they actually take an average of like, the amount of, I guess, people who saw it.
Right.
So it's like a percentage of the people who did see it. So it doesn't advantage you to have a ton of screenings, although typically that's where like, buzz comes from and confidence.
Well, so it's supposed to like weight it so that it doesn't matter. But if you be realistic and look at like the history of the winners, it does seem to matter a lot.
But there are movies that have like 3 or 4 screenings.
It doesn't determine whether it's going to place. Like you can still place with any amount of screenings, but it helps. It helps. And all you have to do is look at the history of the winners.
By the time that, I would have my final predictions, I probably would have thrown Anora in there because I was just like, okay, this is continuing to hit with everybody and people feel really, really strongly about it. It bodes well for if you think the movie's winning Best Picture, which I kind of think. I'm kind of leaning that way right now because The Brutalist, like everybody sort of just knew that wouldn't place, which I kind of get.
The Brutalist can't play. It
yeah.
it just wasn't there enough.
Yeah, I mean, Honora is winning over everybody in a way that I think that broad appeal is making me pretty confident about Best Picture. And you know, Sing Sing, I'm not confident about. I do think that it should have had a little freaking more buzz than it did.
And guess when the last time a film won the Palme d'Or and then placed at People's Choice was? Parasite, which also was also number 3.
But I do think that it's absolutely is rippling like as far as it can in the way that Everything Everywhere, people were like, are you sure that everyone's going to like that? And it's like, no, they are. They actually are. Now, what about the fallen ones? The ones that we've lost? Wild Robot. Some people were saying, oh, this could win or place for People's Choice and make a Best Picture run. Yeah. This is not a possibility anymore. The movie can get animated feature and maybe score.
I thought this is possible based on the reactions. And then I was like, all right, maybe I need to like calm down a bit. And then I saw it and I was like, okay, I definitely need to calm down. And most people I talked to were like, yeah, it's really good. It'll win. It might win animated feature. Not going to get Best Picture nomination. And I think that's absolutely right. Like, I don't think that The Wild Robot is getting a Best Picture nomination.
Well, but now you cannot predict it.
You should not.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that was the only way, because as an animated film, it was so heavily disadvantaged. It would have to win the People's Choice Award.
There was a path.
There was a landslide, and the path has been covered over.
Yeah, the path has been covered by Life of Chuck.
So Saturday Night, do you think that this is a blow? Because like this was supposed to rank. This was expected to maybe win. The only reason that it's not is that right now you have 3 movies in there that we're pretty confident will probably get nominated. And so, you know, even if it's 4th, it's like, okay, but that's still like, it's not like a random ass non-Best Picture movie beat it out, right? So I think there's still a justification for having Saturday Night in your 10. You know what I mean? But if we're being honest, the movie is like 8 at best, probably, due to this.
I really felt like it needed to at least place, and it did not. So
it's a possibility that it can slip.
Listen,
like if
now,
A Real Pain comes back, if Gladiator 2 is a thing, and Blitz is successful, and all these, or Complete Unknown, whatever, then I mean, Saturday Night is a movie that's on the chopping block.
Look, we watched it and we thought, not only is this a very good movie, it's also Oscar bait, and it feels like it'll get nominations. But that's not true about everybody who's seen it. There are a lot of people who do like it and do not consider it an Oscar movie. It doesn't have a high nomination ceiling, and therefore winning People's Choice would have meant a lot for this movie. It's possible Critics' Choice could still nominate. It's possible it could still get SAG Ensemble, but this is a big blow to it. Like, I don't know exactly where to go from here. I might keep it in my top 10, but like, I'm getting rid of it the second that I see some reviews for Gladiator 2 and that they're like buzzing the shit out of it or something like that.
Honestly, like the editing nomination for that movie, it's editing so crowded, and Life of Chuck just made that worse. You know, score, that's fair, because Baptiste, I think, is like they would like to celebrate that. And screenplay's fair. I still think it'll probably get screenplay, but you know, it's a little tiny package. Saturday Night drops if other films are in. That's kind of the way that I think you got to see it right now.
It's all about competition. For Saturday Night, the only thing that can keep it in the Best Picture race is a lack of competition. That's all it is at this point. You are on the chopping block, buddy. You are on thin ice.
I was also wondering if maybe The Substance could rank, because that added like 3 screenings, and if that would make people raise an eyebrow about the possibility of it getting
The Substance ranked, it would be nuts, because that never happens for midnight films. It's very possible like people were voting for it as if it was any other film, and it just still didn't make the top 3. That thing like could have gotten close. The Fire Inside, I had like a little bit of a question mark around that, but I don't think it was a big enough deal at the festival for most people.
Toronto introduces a Best Picture nominee. We didn't think that would happen necessarily. It's also, so there's something to be said for the fact that Life of Chuck was like the one Toronto premiere that was super successful. because everything else was at Telluride and Venice, and usually they like to put a film like that in. We got to see who's going to pick it up. When that happens, we'll probably like a members video or something like that.
What do you have to say to people who think that it's going to be the exception and not get nominated for Best Picture?
It would have to be like The Wild Robot, and you'd be like, okay, I can kind of understand that because it's freaking animated. Or like if The Substance one, it's like, okay, well, that's still very much a genre thing. Even then, I would probably predict those. No. It beat out so many Best Picture films. Like it beat out so many contenders. Conclave's not here either. Like The Brutalist isn't here. Like there's so many movies.
Well, those don't matter. Those didn't screen enough.
But you can rank.
Yeah, but you have
what
to
I'm
be
saying
really good for that.
That's fine. But what I'm saying is that it beat out so many damn films. You cannot say that it's not getting nominated, and you have to concede on adapted screenplay. I don't know what else to say. The reactions are the right thing. It made me laugh, made me cry. I felt life affirmed by the movie, and it was stylistically cool. It was something original. Like how is that not? You know? And
the negative about it is that it's too schmaltzy. So it's like
perfect. That's not fine. Even that's fine.
Is that really a knock for a Best Picture movie?
Nope. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
Do you think Mark Hamill's gonna have an Oscar nomination?